Hello, everybody. This is Stacy Kruzik, and I'm with the Zebra Developer Relations team. And we're so happy that you could join us today for this Dev Talk. We have so much to talk about. We have two this month, and the first is with Robin West, who will wave a little hello to everyone. She's almost ready to go for today. I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping rules and update you on a couple of different things. First of all, for questions for Robin, we're asking that you wait until the end of the presentation. You can put them up in your questions box. You can type them along during the presentation, but we'll probably answer those at the end. If there's technical difficulties or anything like that, I'll jump on. Please feel free to put that in the question space as well, and I'll make sure we can address that, but hopefully all will work well today. A couple of other things. I just wanted to invite everybody here who is not part of our Zebra developer portal. This is an absolutely free community. We would love it if you could participate, and you can find out about all of our events, any type of releases, any type of news. Join our DevBuzz newsletter so you can get all the information on a monthly basis. I promise we keep it short. It's not a sell, it's purely information for developers, and so we invite you to join us for that as well. If there's any questions or concerns after this Dev Talk, please always feel free to go ahead and email us at developer@zebra.com. We can help you there as well. Our next Dev Talk will be on June 17th. As I said, we're having a couple of this month, keeping you all busy with that cup of coffee so you have something to listen to. On our HD 4000, it's about a software development overview. It's been a popular piece with a lot of folks, and James Swinton-Bland and Ian Hatton from our EMEA Zebra Developer Relations team will be conducting that. And again, here's our address for the developer.zebra.com. Join us on our community. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Miss Robin West today, and she's going to tell you what she's going to be talking about here. Thank you so much. Robin, we have you.
Thanks, Stacy. So today I'm actually really happy to be talking to you about a new set of service APIs that Zebra has called the Mobile Computer Device Health APIs. A little bit of a mouthful, but really good APIs and good services that I think a lot of people are going to want to actually start integrating into their applications. So with that, we have a quick agenda. We're going to talk about what is the Mobile Computer Device Health product, how to access it, and details about each of the APIs, and then a quick demo to show you, how we started to use it and play around with it, and how you might start to think about integrating it into your own applications. So what is mobile computer device health? Basically what this is a way to create or integrate mobile computer device data into your own dashboards, your own custom device, your own device dashboards for understanding the fleet of devices that you might have within your company and or your customers' companies. So these are, a lot of customers will create their own dashboards to show their devices that range from medical devices and other things like that to devices that are in a warehouse or manufacturing area. And being able to pull this data from the mobile computers that are in those same spaces is very useful to them. We've had for a long time different ways to access this information through EMM partners, which are mobile device management companies. We have our own Visibility IQ service that we offer, but this is a way to actually take that same type of data and integrating it into your own information, your own dashboards. So these APIs allow you to find out the state of your fleet of devices or individual devices for, say, repair or service, your own technical support types of use cases. The data that we're offering in these is historical. And when I mean historical, it might mean like yesterday or a couple hours ago as opposed to real time. It's still actually really useful information. And in fact, some of the APIs are even more useful in the fact that you're not just seeing real time, but you actually can see the history of what's happened to that device and different events and different things that have happened over time in order to do your own analytics off of it or use our analytics. In a lot of cases, the records that we're talking about here, the device information, application information, battery information, is already actually being sent to Zebra. In some cases it's not, some cases it is. It depends on a lot of times your security setup at your customer or corporate office. But a lot of times it's actually already being sent to us, and these APIs are just a way for you to get access to that information that we're collecting. There's 25 methods included, so it's actually a pretty broad set of endpoints and methods. And we have them grouped into about 11 APIs. Some of these endpoints are just accessing the raw historical records. Some of them are more what we call aggregation, so taking the raw records and, say, over the course of a day, telling you how many of these events, or over the course of devices, how many of them do a certain thing. And then analytics, which use, obviously, machine learning algorithms to determine different things about devices and predict certain things, or give you certain information that isn't available outside of doing those types of analytics activities. So I'm going to actually hop off my slide deck and onto the portal to show you this a little bit, but missing slide here. So one of the other things to keep in mind is that in order to access these APIs, you're going to have to talk to your Zebra account manager or partner manager. So those, if you're talking to your account manager or your partner manager, they'll be able to help you essentially get your devices set up and discuss a trial or contract. These aren't going to be free in the end, although there'll always be a free trial period for you to try them out and integrate them and see how they work and make sure that they're actually right for you and your business case. But we need that initial sort of setup time. We are working on a way to make it so that you can do the initial setup yourselves, or your customers can do the initial setup themselves. But for now, you have to kind of contact us to do that initial setup of those devices. And if you're an account manager or partner manager and don't know where to go, contact the enterprise software product team. So on to the demo portion of this. We're looking at the wrong one. So if you have access, if you're given access, you will get access to this particular API page and the pages that come under it for the mobile computer device health product. This goes over some basic overview, but underneath this you'll see about 11 tiles showing the different APIs that are associated with this product. They go everything from application usage and battery events to analytics, device location, to just basic device information. So they kind of span the broad range of what a device is and what's running on it and how it's working and its entire sort of health status. And like I said, it's not just looking at the current state of those products, but historically what that was. As well. So you get a broad range of that information. That can be really helpful in a lot of different ways. So let me go through each of these individually. I'm going to do them in slightly out of order from what you see here, just because it makes a little bit more sense to me to kind of group them together a little bit differently. So the first one that you're going to want to take a look at is something called device information. This is your general model, SDK version, the serial number of the device, just all of that information available about that particular device and or your fleet of devices. So that's a good baseline to start with. And then the next portion of it is things like the device utilization. So telling you how often the device is being used, if it's and that what that means is not just, it's telling you that the device is actively being used by a user in that the screen is turned on. Device utilization is actually just kind of telling you how much the screen is on, which usually speaking, unless you're in a testing scenario like we oftentimes have, it means that the person is actively using it and interacting with the screen, because then the screen, shuts off, and the device utilization doesn't, assumes that the device isn't being utilized at that time. Um, we run into issues when we're doing these tests because we usually have the screens on all the time as part of our debugging modes. But this is something where you can kind of find out in the real world, as people are using it, how often they're actually interacting with the device. Device disruption is telling you a bunch of different things about how often the device is being turned off and on, especially turned off. And it will tell you not only when the devices get turned off, but also why it's turned off in certain ways. So it'll tell you whether the user initiated a shutdown on the device, which, depending on the situation, may be the right thing to do, or may be something where you don't want your users to be turning off your devices all the time. And then it'll also tell you whether or not there was a system shutdown. So if some application or some background portion of the system decided to shut down that application, which might indicate an issue with that application as well. The next portion of these APIs that I want to talk about were the battery ones. So the battery status is your general battery status. It tells you the level of the battery, voltage, temperature, capacity, and serial number of that battery. So it gives you a whole bunch of that information about it. And then actually, like it says previous 24 hours, but it actually can go back historically pretty far, as long as the device is sending the information to Zebra to tell you, what those statuses were over time. The battery events tell you things around how often, or essentially when, the device is put onto a charging cradle, when it's taken off, when somebody switches out the battery. Those are all events that actually get sent and revealed through this API. So useful in certain ways when you want to know how the battery is being used, and how and where and in what situations the battery is being charged. If it's always being charged overnight and it's always good for the rest of the day, you're good. But if people are charging that device at different times where you're not expecting, then that might be something you want to know. And then the last one in the batteries is the battery health, which is one of our predictive analytics APIs, which calculates and tries to tell you the remaining useful life of the battery, how long you have until the battery is likely to need to be replaced. Some of the other APIs in here are for applications, so you can find out just a list of applications running on the device, and not only today what the applications are, but what they were a week ago, or what they were a year ago, including version numbers of those applications by package. So you could potentially actually utilize this API to tell you when you need to update specific packages on that device, because it does give you that information. Tells you when they're installed and when they're uninstalled, and all of that kind of information that's useful to know about applications. And then there's a couple of other application-based APIs. One of them is for application usage. So it tells you on specific package by package which ones are being used and how long they're being used for. It shows also background applications. So you might not be actively using those applications, but if the application is running, then that will show up in the application usage API. And then the application not responding shows you essentially error events that happen with applications, especially the types of applications that are hang and those types of events that have to do with problems with an application, usually speaking. And we'll give you a list of events by timestamp when those have happened on devices. And then there's two other analytics APIs. One of them is the device baseline analytics, which is a general analytics API. I haven't dug into a huge amount yet. I'm hoping to very soon. But this one allows you to take a look across all of the data and try to find outliers and things that sort of fall outside the norm for your fleet of devices. and or outside of the norm for devices in general that Zebra has access to be able to see. So the basic analytics is how you would find that. And it is fairly generic, but like I said, I'm hoping to play around with it at some point. But feel free to to try it out yourselves. And then the device location is another analytics API that tells you essentially calculates the location of the device based on a number of different factors, from the IP address to the GPS address to beaconing information as well. They can be taken into account to give you a device location for that mobile computer device. So I'm going to go into a couple of these so you can see them in action. A bunch of these have so at for the battery health one, which is one of our analytics APIs, gives you a fairly basic introduction to it, and there's two different methods for getting it. You can either get it by the device ID or by the battery ID. I'm going to grab it by the device ID. So I have my device posted in here. I have my API key. I'm going to send that request, and it gives me back a response. It says my battery remaining useful life is 180 days. This is sort of if it doesn't know enough to predict, it's basically the maximum is 180 that it'll give you. Partially because most of our devices are fairly new, we don't have, and we don't utilize them quite as much as some of our customers do. Most of our batteries that we found in here in the system right now are listed as 180 days because of that. The fact that they just aren't utilized as much. They're generally sitting on a cradle all the time, and they're newer devices. So the remaining useful life on them is generally 180 days, but you'll find in a lot of your customer situations that they're going to be less than that. It does take actually a few weeks for this API to gather enough data to give you a true prediction, a good prediction. That's why it posts in here the number of days last seen. Generally speaking, they're saying it takes about 6 weeks of usage of the device in order for this API to be more and more accurate. Because it is a machine learning algorithm, its accuracy does increase over time, and you'll get a better and better state of your device from an individual device level, and then actually all the way across your fleet as well. One of the other APIs that I wanted to show you in more detail was the device utilization. This one also has two different endpoints where you can pull up historical records, which is sort of the raw data, or you can pull it up by aggregation. So this kind of takes into account day by day what the utilization of a device was. So I'm pulling up the raw records for this. But it depends on your use case, which one makes the most sense. I've got my device ID in here. I put in a start time. If you don't put in a start time, it gives you the last record. But on this one, I wanted to actually show a history. So I wanted to show a couple of days worth of what the device utilization is on this one. Now this one is one of our test devices, so it's pretty much on all the time. Which you'll be able to see in the utilization numbers that it's pretty much running all the time and never really turned off. But you'll see that this is showing multiple dates in here for what the usage of those devices, what that usage of this particular device is. And the last one here that I wanted to show in more detail was the application usage. So this actually looks at the individual applications running on the device and what their usage is by package. So I've got my device ID. I've got basically I've got it running for 1 day just to pull this up. Some of these aggregation APIs do take a little bit of time to run because they have to aggregate the data. So it does take a little bit of time. So some of these you want to keep the request size fairly small depending on your use case, at least until there's speedier factors in order to speed up the usage of these. So I'm going to send this request, and it's showing that on that date there were 4 applications. These were all running in the background. As you can see by the duration on them, was all pretty much the same most of the date. And actually, if you look at the names of the packages, they're pretty much going to be background applications anyway. But if I change this to be 2 days, and send that out, it actually will give me timestamp 2 days worth of information about the usage of this application. So one day there were only four being used, and then the next day there looks like there were about 6 applications being used depending on the use case. So there's a couple of different things in here. So I hope that gives you some idea about how you can test out these APIs and or some of the different use cases around them. We also, when we were working with these APIs and trying to help come up with ways of showcasing how they can be used, we did create our own little basic demo app, nothing too crazy, but showing a basic dashboard of how you can utilize these APIs, or just one way we were thinking of doing it. Certainly you all have your own use cases and your own ways of utilizing it, and utilizing this information for your customers. But this is just one way of that we were playing around with these in order to see what you could do with them. So this is a basic dashboard. It shows things like the fact that we have 9 devices in our fleet, and 3 have reported in today. It's still early in the day, at least in this area. So more of them may report in over the course of the day, or some of them are just turned off and aren't going to be reporting in today. It shows the models of the devices that we currently have. Most of them are TC56s. It's a new device, it's a good device. And then by the version breakdown on here. And then we've got our list of devices. I'm going to pull up the same one that I've been playing around with, 082. And this is the raw record of the information that we get from the Device Information API. So it's got everything from the serial number, the IMEI, to things like what time zone it's set to. And I know that this particular device is actually in San Diego, partially because I know where the device is. And then we're showing the model number in here, and then we're also being able to pull up the battery status. So on this one, it's not pulling it up. Gotta love live demos. All right, it doesn't like the battery status on this one, but I showed you earlier that there's that those APIs are useful for different things. Be able to tell you the current charge, the voltage, the temperature, and actually it will also tell you how long the battery is likely to remain live if it's taken off the cradle and discharging. So how long it's likely to remain active and able to be used that day. And then we also pulled up a timeline to show events for specific devices. This one does take a little bit of time to fully load up with the different events because it's pulling each of these individual APIs that are time-based APIs. I'm actually going to go back a week and pull this up for a couple of different things. It's not showing it. There we go. Obviously, this is just a basic demo, so we're playing around with a few things in here, and sometimes it's a demo. So this is showing that this particular device was checked in a couple of times last week, and that it's not quite what I was hoping for. Showing check-ins a couple times. That's not right. All right. So gotta love live demos. Some of the devices are a little bit more active than others. So you'll see different things come in depending on what they are. And then the last portion is the apps. The demo gods aren't like me today. All right. So what I'm going to do is pull up the JavaScript so you can see essentially how we did this. When we're first loading up the application, one of the first things we had to do was find out what our tenants were. A tenant concept is the idea that that you as a person and or as a member of a company have a account with Zebra, and that your devices are owned by you and or owned by that account as a company. So the tenant information tells you your information, your ownership account for utilizing devices within Zebra. I know I'm probably not describing that very well, but basically it's your account within Zebra as far as what devices you own and different services that you might have access to from there. Now, everyone gets a personal account that's associated with their email address when they register into the portal. You'll also, if you're part of a larger company that has you listed within our system as a representative, either a technical representative or another representative, you might also see your company as part of your tenants. So requesting your list of tenants is actually really useful because then you can figure out a lot of these different requests will also ask for the tenant information as well, so that it knows that you're requesting information about one tenant as opposed to another. This also is true for if you're a partner who has multiple customers and you want to potentially access their tenant information for different devices. They have to give you permission, obviously, and that portion of the system is still being built out. But this is part of how you would request that information, as well as to figure out what tenants you have access to and what types of information you have access to within those tenants. The other portion of this is you need to actually figure out what devices you have access to. So this API is one that you can call that, by tenant, what devices are in that tenant, and be able to then utilize that to call the other APIs when you know what your devices are, and can figure out what your fleet looks like. This just gives you essentially a list of your devices. It doesn't really tell you any information about them. That's where the mobile computer device health APIs come into play. So the APIs are actually really simple to use. They're very basic APIs. So we've got our, URL. We've got start time that's in UTC format, and then we're just going to do a GET request. Throw in our API key and parse the response. It's not that difficult, but obviously knowing what the responses are going to be, that's where you'd look at the portal to figure out what those response models look like, and or calling them and parsing them out and figuring that out. So these are useful APIs, and the sample code for this demo app is going to be posted onto GitHub in the next couple of days. Just so you have access to this information, but these are showing some of these different APIs. So some of the information that comes back from these APIs is things like different statuses, charge sources, and that kind of thing will give you a numerical value back, which is fine, and is useful for if you want to internationalize some of this information. But knowing what the actual data stands for is useful. That's all in the documentation as well. But I threw it into here in order to utilize that and to internationalize it myself as English. And so we've got the battery history. So this is pulling up the information about that particular battery and going to fill that information into the modal. I'm not sure why it didn't work, but gotta love demos. And the battery life also is telling you how long the battery is predicted to last. So I'm gonna also pull up the JavaScript for the applications page. It shows the set of applications that are called. So this is getting you a list of the applications through this applications history. And going to send that request. And then once it gets response, it's just going to fill out that table with the information about the name, the package, and the version of that application. There is more information that's returned that you might want to utilize, but these are the biggies that most people want to know. So these are the ones that I was showing in this particular demo. And you could also put together something, like I said before, where you can see the application not just last time it reported, but also the applications a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, in order to figure out what might have changed. These also tell you when applications have been installed and uninstalled as well. And that's all part of the data that gets returned on these. And then the applications not responding, which unfortunately not too many times happens, especially in our test devices. So wasn't able to pull up any application not responding events when I was doing my testing on this. But this will respond with the different events time-stamped to tell you when and what package might have had an application not responding event. So that if you get a lot of them, you can say, hey, there might be something going on with this application. This one is also, you can cut the data by not just the device, but also by model or even by package. So you can see, okay, for this package, how often is it actually getting these application not responding? So it does, the APIs that we have do allow you to cut it in different ways. And actually a lot of these APIs have that functionality of being able to look at it by device, by model, or by some other way of looking at it, by certain, by the battery serial number. So that's one of the useful things about these APIs, is that we do give you a couple of different ways of cutting the data and finding that information, and can be really useful for building them into your applications. So we think these are going to be helpful for a lot of people who want to integrate this information into your systems and into your dashboards that you might have created to work with other types of devices. So that's primarily what I've got right now. So what let's hear from you guys as far as any questions you might have.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Hang on a second here. Let me jump on to some questions. Matt asks, as a reseller offering managed services, are we able to see a global tenant view of all of our end customer devices that we manage?
You will be able to. We're still building out part of the system that allows customers to give you that access. And it's in there, but it's a little bit more manual on our part. But in the end, yes, you will be able to do that. And there will be some new services that we're offering to allow customers to enroll devices and allow you as a partner, as a reseller partner, to get access to those devices per what they want you to have access to. Obviously, you have to work with them to, negotiate what you can access and what you can't access. But yes, is the end.
Okay, and someone had asked about providing examples, but one of the things I wanted to note here, just for everyone, this presentation, both the recorded version and also a hard copy of Robin's presentation will be available. We'll post it back on the blog where you may have registered on the Dev portal, and we'll also send out a notification to everyone to let them know when it's up. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to email us at developer@zebra.com, and we're happy to direct you to whatever you're needing at that point. I think for right now, those are all the questions that I'm seeing. If there's anybody else, please feel free to go ahead and place that in our question box. Okay, I think for today, these were all the questions I received, and we appreciate everybody attending. And I'll go ahead and provide a link. A couple of people have asked a link for the next DevTalk as well. I'll provide that in the question box and send that out to you all. And we want to thank Robin for an excellent presentation today. And again, if there's any questions, email us at developer@zebra.com, and we'll wrap this up today and hope everyone is staying safe and staying well, and look forward to seeing you on the next DevTalk.
Thanks, everyone.